Nearshoring is what we call it when labor's on the same time zone as you, and offshoring is when labor's across an ocean. So nearshoring was really appealing to me and a lot of my clients because they could have a full workday overlap. You're on Slack at the same time, you're on WhatsApp at the same time, Zoom calls, emails, all this stuff is kind of back and forth in real time.
Where can they use the nearshoring talent?
Companies want to maximize their spend, right? They want good ROI. They've also learned from the last 5 years as remote work got really, really popular that time zone really mattered. That puts Latin America, front and center on the map.
What are the roles that you see best suited to, it's going to depend on the business, but I mean, if we think about those like blue collar businesses, where do you see the non-US talent fitting in the best?
I think where a lot of companies went to originally was the Philippines. And I've got a lot of good things to say about the Philippines. You can get tremendously cost-effective talent. But there's one resounding issue that I think a lot of people have.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Brian Samson, the founder of Plug Technologies, a leading nearshore firm connecting Latin American talent with US companies. Brian has spent 10 years focused on nearshoring, including living as an expat in Argentina.
So really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast, Jason, share my story. I grew up in the Midwest and then eventually made it all the way to California. That was a big move for me. Huntington Beach for a couple of years and then San Francisco. And in San Francisco, it was all about tech startups, and my background happened to be in recruiting. So I kind of was the guy that startups would hire when they needed to hire. And typically they would raise a lot of capital. Today it's all about AI. Back when I lived there, it was all about SaaS, software as a service. Typical rounds for the companies I was at, usually that's Series A, Series B. So figure like a $10 million check or a $30 or $40 million check. So nothing like these, $100 billion rounds that, AI companies are getting today.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they're spending it on other than data centers.
Right.
But back in the day in SaaS, you would spend the majority of that check on people. So I was the guy, and then I would build teams around, build recruiting teams to then, build software teams and so forth. A couple of those did really well. A couple of those didn't. But finally kind of had this courage to get into entrepreneurship and started a software solutions company of my own. And that led me to Argentina. So I spent about a year as an expat in Argentina. And the last 9 years I've lived in Oahu, Hawaii, where I'm with my family. And I've been focused on this world of nearshoring. And then similar to you, Jason, as I read your bio, I've kind of made my money a certain way, but then, done some T-shaped work. So I have some home services companies. I have some real estate investments.
Nice.
And some other services companies as well. But yeah, really passionate about Latin America, really passionate about entrepreneurship. And my wife and I are also foster parents. So we've adopted a little girl out of foster care, and something we're big advocates for as well.
Fantastic. I find that on the podcast, especially, that I just noticed that there's a lot of variation in people's backgrounds and in the the path is not a straight it's not a straight line to where we end up, and seems both of us have experienced that. But I often think that all those experiences along the way really, they add up and kind of play together sometimes better than you might think. Like in some instances it's like, well, there's no way that those go together, but like in fact they do, or there's certain skill sets that kind of cross over. And so I mean, your your background in sort of tech, and then moving into now the offshore talent space and recruiting. What do you, I guess, to tie that together a little bit more? Talk about how that kind of made sense to you. Were you using a lot of offshore talent? I mean, just talk a little bit about how that kind of connection came for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, good observation. I think, is like, I think the most famous is probably Steve Jobs, when he like learned Sanskrit or something, and now it's on your MacBook with font and all this stuff. So, but anyway, I think I've always kind of been like a mile wide, inch deep person. I rather than going super deep into one domain, I just want to learn like enough about it to be dangerous, and then get distracted, move on to something else. Uh, but I do use so like I use my talent understanding and understanding of the tech world to do the Latin America thing. And for those that don't know, nearshoring is what we call it when labor's on the same time zone as you, and offshoring is when labor's across an ocean. So nearshoring was really appealing to me and a lot of my clients because they could have a full workday overlap. You're on Slack at the same time, you're on WhatsApp at the same time, Zoom calls, emails, all this stuff is kind of back and forth in real time. So I kind of use like one to parlay into the other, use talent to parlay into Latin America, Latin America to parlay into like being an entrepreneur and understanding, finance and P&L and marketing. And then today, that's all kind of been parlayed into like now I've got a nearshore team member helping my cleaning business, and I have a nearshore team member helping my AI specialty company. And then I use my AI company to support my locksmith company. So it all kind of, comes together and you're able to leverage one for the other. But I think that initial knowledge was, um, just you, like I was just a technical recruiter guy in Chicago where I started. And, I just didn't want to stop there. I wanted to get much more broad.
Yeah. Well, the like looking at each of these stops along the way as opportunities, and how they all kind of built one upon the other. I mean, you talked about living in Argentina, now you're in Oahu. So you know San Francisco. I mean, you've got to move around and experience different parts of the country and world, which I think is always one of those things that gets talked about, but maybe overlooked as to just how impactful that can be in seeing different cultures, and even just different places to live in the U.S. But you talked about how these your different businesses tie together. What is the I use virtual assistants. I think they're phenomenal. But talk a little bit about like what is the value proposition that you see to a business owner in
Yeah.
these types of like placement services, and then and also just like where can they use the nearshoring talent?
Yeah. So when you think about your labor force, and the last 5 or 6 years has been nothing but volatile in the U.S.
Mhm.
And I don't just mean politically. I just mean like you've got COVID, and then like a big pent up demand, and all of a sudden everything is overpriced and inflated, and quiet quitting, and the labor market is overheating. Then you've got a big crash, and then you've got AI, and it's just kind of all over the place. Like companies want to maximize their spend, right? They want good ROI. They've also learned from the last 5 years as remote work got really, really popular that time zone really matters. Um, so a lot of these companies are looking for labor arbitrage. They're looking for collaboration in the workday. Um, that puts Latin America, front and center on the map, where before it was kind of forgotten about. people would run to India or the Philippines or Eastern Europe. Now Latin America is really on the map. For those that don't know, I mean, you've got some major talent pockets there. Brazil has become an elite place for AI and data engineers. Argentina for full stack developers. Nicaragua, Central America, for that matter, for call center, customer service, BPO, back office. Mexico for a wide variety of both manufacturing and software engineering and marketing, things like that. And then all these other countries, have places. Colombia, Medellin has transformed itself from 30, 40 years ago of like the Pablo Escobar days that people still might cling to now. I mean, it is like a haven for entrepreneurs just building brand new companies. So part one of that, Jason, is time zone alignment, a little bit less expensive, highly educated workforce. The part two of that, it's kind of like why I'm there and why my clients are there. But part two is why my clients stay, why I stay. And Latin America has gone through a lot. We freak out when eggs, are $2 more, right?
Yeah.
Or inflation is 8%, gas prices, oh my gosh. But imagine being in Latin America, like Argentina, for example, has gone through, it went from being one of the richest countries in the world to decades and decades and decades of total mismanagement, wild inflation, cash controls, capital controls. So imagine just being a private citizen and your currency is pegged 1-to-1, peso to US dollar, and you've got $10,000 in your savings account. And all of a sudden, the next day, that $10,000 is now worth $1,000. You've lost 90% of your value overnight, and you didn't do anything. Like just bad economic policy, the government, the currency collapsed because of bad actors. So as a result, they've gone through just some like crazy, insane stuff. And as a result, they're really good critical thinkers, problem solvers. They're flexible, adaptable, they're scrappy. So to your original question, why, what are the benefits of it for companies and hiring managers? I think it's really the part two, of who doesn't want people that are scrappy, adaptable, flexible, good problem solvers on their team. I mean, I want them, my clients want them, and Asia is always going to win on price, but I think as the value proposition shifts and okay, just for a little bit more money, now everybody's on my time zone and I get all these extra attributes, it's a no-brainer.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I found anyway, I'd love to get your take, but is that, it just depends maybe on the role that you're looking for. Like there are probably certain things that can happen when you're asleep or what, but like that having someone on your time zone or close to it is tremendously helpful. It's what so you mentioned that a cleaning company and a locksmith and things like that. Those aren't things that nearshore or offshore talent can do the actual job for you, right? Like they can't clean for you. And that's the same like with our electrical business. I can't hire an electrician that's in Mexico. Like they have to actually be here and do the things. So But what are the roles that you see best suited to? It's going to depend on the business, but I mean, if we think about those like blue collar businesses, where do you see the non-US talent fitting in the best?
Yeah. So I think where a lot of companies went to originally was the Philippines, and I've got a lot of good things to say about the Philippines. You can get tremendously cost-effective talent.
Mm.
But there's one resounding issue that I think a lot of people have, with it is they tend to be inside the box thinkers, right?
Yeah.
So you need to give them like a very specific process. They'll follow it like a T, right? But we've all had our United Airlines issues, where you you get connected to the call center, connected to the Philippines, and you have something that's not perfectly on script for them. You need to use miles and switch your flight, and instead of going direct from Boston to LA, now you need to reroute it through Dallas and then Charlotte because you need to make some stops and see some people, but you want to use your miles for one of those legs, and it's all of a sudden like just way too much because it's way outside of script, and you as a customer, you might love everything about that experience flying United. Maybe you love like the seats, the service, the lounge, all the stuff. But you're pulling your hair out from this call center experience because you just can't get on the same page with what you're trying to achieve. And it causes customer churn. And that's what a lot of these companies didn't factor in. They're saving a lot of money up front on that labor, but they're driving their customers crazy. And with Latin America, they're much more outside the box, just conversational. You don't need to give them scripts. They can go, off script, figure stuff out. And that's where I think in this day and age of it doesn't make sense to like have an overstaffed back office team. You can stay nimble, just have a couple people, maybe one person, honestly, and they're able to set pricing, update the website, field calls, handle social media, figure out digital payments, build partnerships, like the kind of stuff these are all things that I have my operations manager from Latin America do for my Hawaii cleaning business, right? And by the way, these are all things that my lead cleaner used to have to worry about. Now it's fully off of her plate, and she's able to lead the team, ensure quality control, do all the stuff on the ground. And also, as we're talking about leverage, there's like labor leverage and then there's AI leverage. And that's where I think the interesting problems will be over the next few years is, do I use labor for this? Do I need onshore, offshore, or nearshore? Or do I use AI? Or do I use like one armed with the other? And it's going to create a lot of interesting conversations.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be. I think people talk about AI taking jobs, and I think if I were looking for a job in tech, I would want to be a AI implementer or integrator, like someone who actually makes it work for people, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like get in there and have it be, what's the best way to make this work for your particular problem that needs solving. You mentioned the call center issue with offshore talent, and it's interesting because, well, I think that's still true for some of that difficulty with call centers and in general, and I don't even know that it's exclusive to offshore. I have plenty of people that I talk to from the US that can't fix the problem that you're trying to. But some places have tried to implement AI as those call centers, and it's also bad. But like, if you think about it from, what's that going to look like maybe in 5 years or 10 years, it might be a lot better. But right now it's your point about customer satisfaction and sort of driving away customers, I think is a bit of a lost art. But I have to hope that it's going to, like, the pendulum's going to swing back in that direction, where it's like, how can you set yourself apart by, as a company and for your customers, is by being, we kind of get back to being like customer driven, customer satisfaction driven, and having really good outcomes and the conversation. So it's being able to figure out how to implement, whether it's AI or international talent, like being able to implement those things in such a way that it makes people want to keep coming back to you, I think is going to be almost like a specialty in and of itself, is like how to tie it all together and make it such a way that people like it. They still are having a good experience with whatever your service or product or whatever. Like, it doesn't, I don't know that it's exclusive to any particular industry, but being able to see how these things can be implemented, of course, for the cost savings, it's that's probably the big driver, but also like efficiencies and being able to, probably even take tasks that humans aren't very good at, and we can use AI to make them even better. So I don't know that was necessarily a question, or more just like my observations on some of what I've seen over these last
Yeah. Well,
years.
you know what? Maybe I'll give you an example of how I've paired both AI and Nearshore together.
Yeah.
So I've got this pretty good sized Nearshore staffing company called Plug. So we're working with small and medium sized businesses, place about 100 people a year. So that starts to, get to a reasonable scale where you've got background checks you're running and computers you're trying to track, and this client needs this particular thing. So there's a lot of stuff. And when you've got 18 placements a year, your operations manager can handle it. When we start to do 100, it gets to be a lot. And our operations team is pretty accurate. Like, they're pretty darn accurate, but pretty darn isn't 100%, right?
Yeah.
So we paired this with AI. So now there's a tool called N8N, and we kind of tied everything together. So there's a lot of automation built into the intelligence. And now it can be done instantaneously, at scale, zero errors. Does that replace our operations team? Not at all. It actually takes a lot of this, like, almost data entry stuff and like tracking things across spreadsheets and CRMs and everything totally off their plate. And now our consultant happiness scores are way up because our operations team is free to just build relationships all day and like, hey, how's your project going? Anything we can help? Kind of sniff out any issues and like that onboarding stage that might come up. Or before, where they were so knee deep in operational work that they couldn't come up for air.
Yeah, and I think that's what people maybe miss when they talk about loss of jobs and stuff. I mean, some of these jobs that are going to be lost are really kind of jobs that no one wants. In a lot of instances, jobs that no one wants anyway, right? Like data entry and things like that are just repetitive, and this can be done much more accurately, to your point, and faster using AI capabilities. So I think who knows, we've a lot of this is still very much a work in progress, and we have have to have a bit of a wait and see, but try to adapt along the way as to how these things are going to work in whatever particular industry or business you might be in. How do you see, if you're doing 100 placements a year, how do you see that growing? Do you see that growing? Do you think that that AI is going to potentially take some of that business away? Like, because you're in both businesses, so you're maybe potentially a conflict of interest or something like that. You're just, but maybe not. Maybe that's just not going to
Yeah.
the
So
case.
I'll answer your first question about, the 2020s are far and away, I think, the decade for Latin America. This is the continent in the world that is thriving right now, as a lot more attention falls off of Asia. China's in the doghouse, India's in the doghouse. There's fatigue from both India and the Philippines. So a lot of that work that would have gone there is being reallocated to Latin America. A lot of onshore work is being reallocated to nearshoring. We tend to be more in the IT space, and the larger the companies, the more complicated the code base. So I think most companies were wildly enthusiastic 18 months ago. Like, oh, we'll just hire 50 agents to do our software development instead of 50 software developers. But I think what they're starting to see is like, with all the potential tools, integrations, grabbing code, like an agent grabbing code and then trying to insert it, is only causing issues. You need humans to do that with like large legacy code bases. What it has changed though is this world of vibe coding, where like a non-technical person like me can just fire up my laptop and we've got a web app in 2 hours, and it works and it's cool. Does it pass any security tests? No. Can it integrate with like anything, interesting? Probably not. But like, hey, it kind of works for me. So then it, creates this like distribution issue, and it goes back to, marketing is still, a really hot skill set. So I think it impacts today, maybe I'll be on your podcast again in 2 years, and we'll see if this.
I'm sure it's all changing so fast. I'm sure it'll be a very different conversation.
Yeah, we'll see if this comes through. But I think if your code base is at all like, at all scaled, AI can help you a little bit, but not nearly as much as people had in their hypothesis.
I buy that. I think, yeah. I think it's interesting. I mean, I know I'm not tech savvy. I use ChatGPT for some things. I feel like I haven't heard anybody else say this, so maybe it's just me because I'm not tech savvy. I feel like ChatGPT is worse now than it was when it first came out. And
yeah,
I'm like, and by worse I mean, so I didn't pay for it, and so I think it's just now structured to get me to pay for it. Because where you used to be able to tell it to do things, now it almost tries to be really conversational, and I don't want my AI. I don't need it to be conversational. I like, here are the tasks, do the tasks. And it's like, that's a great question that you've asked me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't need to be validated by you. Like, we're just going to work together. And so I don't like using it as much as I did a year ago even. And I don't know if that's because I haven't paid for it, or if it's because there are other ones that are better now, or what. Like, I don't know enough about it to really know. I just know I don't like using it in the way that I liked using it, when I first started using it, which is it was an interesting, it's supposed to get better, right, over time. And it's like, I like it less.
Yeah. I started paying for it pretty early, but now I think it's better for me because I can feed it and it remembers everything. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
So like stuff that I brought up, 6 months ago, like it, and it really helps me a lot with like this chasing different deals and like how it kind of fits into my buy box and valuation. So it helps me a lot as like an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, operator, investor. The other thing that I did, thanks to some recommendations, is I went to the settings, and I don't know if you can do this on the free version, but I told it like, just be ultra direct,
Right.
tell me when I'm wrong, be
Yeah.
blunt, and wow, like it was night and day the way it talks to me.
Okay.
Because before,
Maybe I have to look
exactly
for
like
that.
you said, Jason, like, man, Brian, you are just so smart to be thinking about that.
Right. It's like,
Now it's like, I'm going to push back here on this one, Brian. You're way off on your thinking. Here's why, and I like that. But I do still use Perplexity. I use Claude. I use Gemini. I kind of work across, trying to see like which one I like for which thing, which problem, because they're not each one of them. I don't think is like a one size fits all.
And yeah, that may be the case. I haven't even tried any of the others. I've had people like we, of course, end up talking about AI on almost every podcast now because it's a relevant topic. But I've had people say like, oh, I use Claude for this specific type of thing, and I think it's maybe it's Claude or something. But someone said that like you can almost teach it or you can have it like research something and it will create a podcast around that topic for you to look at. And like, so I think there are a lot of maybe different angles, which is, again, I'm sure it's this part of this is just I don't know enough about the technology, but I'm like, shouldn't it just be learning how I want it to be? Isn't that the whole point? Like it should just be figuring out what I need it for when I use it, not just like this is universally how ChatGPT is, or this is universally how Claude is. Like I would have thought it would just do the things and then like figure out, but what do I know? It's interesting space, but a useful tool to be sure. Brian, let me switch gears. I want to make sure I have time to ask you the questions I ask every guest, and the first one is based on the name of the show being Know Your Why, and I've in your bio and you sort of touched on it in the beginning, but tell us a little bit about your why. Kind of what's driving you, what keeps you interested and moving forward.
Yeah, I think there's really maybe like three things for me. I got exposed to Latin America 10 years ago, and I still love being the person who kind of brings like a spotlight to it, because there's still a lot of people that never worked with it, never visited, besides maybe like a weekend at Cancun all-inclusive resort. Right.
They've been to Cabo and that's it.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like, I think that goes for quite a few people. And I feel fortunate to kind of be the first voice to, hey, did you know that there's like a whole treasure trove of really amazing people there? I think the second thing is, I just really like learning, people that are in my network kind of like joke, mock me a little bit. Like, you start a new business yet? Like, or did you start another one? Like, well, yeah, I actually did.
Of course I did. Yes. Yeah.
But I love that part, because like once you kind of understand your superpower, and then you understand how to take advantage of leverage, I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. Kind of like broad-based learning. And the third is, I'm a family guy. We've got a biological son and then a little girl we adopted out of foster care. So I've tried to organize my life around how can I be there like all the time for all the things. Yeah. And that's a huge part for me.
Yeah, it's great. How old are the kids?
5 and 6.
Oh, it's close. I've got a 7 and 4, so we're not,
okay.
We're not far off. We're in the same ballpark. But yeah, that's that to me, that is easily the best reason to be an entrepreneur, is the flexibility it provides you in terms of just like being there for family. Like there's no job that would let me run my schedule the way that I do, and it doesn't mean that I work less hours. I'm fairly certain I work more hours and get less sleep than I did before, but it's okay. I'm happier like in that scenario.
Yeah.
So I'm
Good.
fine with that. So yeah, I get it. It's and I too, like, sometimes it's easy to get stuck in that shiny object syndrome, and you're like, what would be really cool is to make this business, and like it's so yeah, I get similar jokes from my friends. But well, when people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, despite having lots of businesses, easiest way is to go to plugg.tech, and there's a contact us form, and all that gets routed to me.
Okay, perfect. We'll have that in the show notes so people can find you. It's been a great conversation, Brian. Thank you. Thanks for being here and sticking through whatever happened on that technical live. It's just deleted by Riverside, apparently. But thanks for hanging in there. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time today.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
Folks listening, make sure you connect with Brian. We'll have that URL in the show notes. Please like, rate, and review the show so we continue to get great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?